Coolant leak on a 2008 535i E60 54 engine. When I brought it into BMW for the high pressure fuel pump issue, she decided to have a leak on her radiator. After the guys had done some diagnostics at a very high cost, they said that the overflow coolant tank here and the upper coolant hose had a leak in it. It took a little bit, and I figured out that one day when I was out driving that there was indeed a leak, a crack in the overflow tank that you can see there. Now this has been mildly repaired with some epoxy right now, and it's a temporary fix. I do have a new part on order for this. But they also told me that the hose that was in question was down in here, the one that feeds off into the block, and I didn't think that that was right. The reason I didn't think it was right because of the way the spray pattern is on the top of the manifold here, and there was some over here before it got cleaned across the air filter, and you can still see it on the intake valve. I believe that it happened to be this hose, the actual overflow tank hose that comes out and goes underneath this piece of metal sheathing on the front and actually goes back into the larger hose over here on the side. So I did a quick search on Amazon. I did order the tank. I could not find this hose, so I did actually have to go to the dealer for that. Before I went to the dealer, though, I topped off the tank because I was getting low coolant message. And when I did that, got to the dealer and back, at that point I had another low coolant message, so I knew something had definitely gone wrong, even worse. So I took off this cover plate piece. I'll show you how to do that in a second. But you can see here that there's leaks with fresh coolant all under here and down into some of the body and guts of the engine in there. So let's start at the beginning. So what I had to do was take off this piece, like I mentioned, this trim piece that sits up on top of the radiator. There's actually 10 bolts that sit in the area. They're real easy to identify, but there's 3 over here, 1 here, 2 along the center where the catch mechanism is, and then a corresponding set on the other side. In total, I think there's 10. I did have a mistake when I had taken this off one time, and it actually fell into that catch area down here. So it is somewhere rattling around down in there. I could not find it and get it out. So once you get it out, you'll notice that underneath this part here in the center, there's a little bit of a catch, a lip to this, to that piece in there. And so all you have to do is slip it out from under that. It comes off real easy. There's not a lot of torque on these screws either. They are T20s. Check that. It might be a T30. Yeah, I was right. It was a T30. So take your T30s out. Should be 10 of them. Real easy to get out. Slide the mechanism out, or the cover plate rather. Slide it out and kind of lift up at the same time. Don't disconnect any of the pieces that are underneath it. The easiest thing to do is just take it and just gently flip it back over and just press it up on top of the cool engine block. And then you can see here the full extent of the hose as it comes across. It's flexible here, semi-rigid across the middle, and then it continues along over here. And where I thought this was going to be a single pipe that connects here, it actually connects onto the larger water pipe here that goes back into the block or into the pump. This is the piece that I went to go get at BMW this afternoon. That's the part number that they use for that. This is the hose as it came out of the package. You can see that this is the side that will hook up to the water, the overflow tank itself. That semi-rigid piece that it goes under a couple of clips on the body, and then the larger pipe that goes into the pump. Shouldn't be that hard to do. It has the typical pieces, these clamps that hold it on. I'll show you a close-up here in a second. So here you can see in detail on the large part of the hose, that piece of metal in the middle, that's the part that's going to have to be lifted up. And they just catch, you'll see the metal slide up here inside the tube itself on both sides there. Same mechanism works on the smaller end as well. So there it is on the smaller end. You'll see that this is the part that actually hooks into the overflow. That little loop of metal on the top will be what gets lifted up with a small little pick tool. This is the tool I'm going to use to replace or pull the stops on those on the hose ends. It's just a small little pick tool that I actually had from an old Mercedes that I used to own, an old 240D. And you'll see on the end of the wire end of the down here is actually just a small little bend in the metal, and that will allow you to grasp onto the metal of the hose clamps and pull them straight up gently. They don't have to come very far, and it will be what allows us to remove the end of the hose off the stubs. So here's the end of the hose as it connects up to the top of the overflow tank. You'll see this small little metal loop in here, right here. So all you really have to do is just get the small pick tool and lift up on it, and that will release the clamp, and you should be able to wiggle the hose off gently. From there, there's a small clip on the body here where the soft pipe meets that rigid pipe, and then a similar one over on this end, and the larger hose under here should have the same setup there right next to that blue mark. To the left of it, you'll see that same mechanism there, and then on this end here as well. Now, I'm not sure how much fluid is going to escape from this hose as I pull it, so I am going to put some paper towels and some other stuff under it. Since my tank here is pretty much empty, there shouldn't be anything much on this end of the hose. Air should have leaked through it at this point. I'm just more concerned about the larger end of the hose over here. That may have a little bit more volume, so I'll actually put a small tray under that before I take those off. So here we go. I'm just going to reach under here, pull this up, and just release it just a little bit. You can see it doesn't really need to come out very far. And of course it's going to be stubborn. Let me see if I can get it loose with two hands or a little bit of WD-40 or something. So there's the end of the hose. You can see it's completely free of everything now. Wiggles around pretty easily. It actually just came straight off. There is a key on there, and I looked on the replacement piece. That keyway on both edges of there need to realign with the keyway on the top of the stub. So from here, all I did was just pull it out of these two little clip areas on both sides of that rigid pipe. I'll try and keep this end lifted up above so it doesn't drip any fluid out the back end as I go and remove this pipe. Go ahead and make sure you've got everything else out of the way for right now, and this should be hopefully a fairly easy operation. So just to err on the side of caution, I did shove a bunch of paper towel underneath the both ends of the hose. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly how much fluid should come out of there. There may not be a lot since it's at the top of the radiator. I'm hoping it's all cooled off and settled down into the system, but you never know. It's really tight in there. I was going to put some plastic containers in there, but that's just not going to work. So starting from this end, I'm just going to take my hook tool, get up under here, lift straight up, and I'm going to come under here and do the same thing. Off under here, at the high point of the wire, try and wiggle this in here. and pull it out. And again, the same thing we'll try is just to pull this straight out from its connection. Just pull it straight back toward the body in this case, and then pull this one out after I get everything out of the way. Okay, here we go. The first side is out. It did take a little bit of wiggling, just gentle up and down motion, and like I thought, most of the water has flown out of that area, so it should be good. Now I'm just going to pull toward the driver's wheel and get this end of the hose. So there's one other hose that I didn't see until I could get a look right here, but just underneath the bottom of there, of the this end is a hose connection right there. Let me go ahead and get that one undone and lift it out. This piece was a little bit hard to get off than I planned. I just squirted a small amount of WD-40, let it sit there for a second, just to soak in between that joint. And you can see the top of that hose there. That one does have a lot of fluid in it, so I will probably get that one connected up first, and then make the connection to the pump and the radiator side, and then run the other piece, the smaller one, back over here to the coolant overflow. So that underneath piece went on pretty easy. This one went on pretty easy. Just make sure you line up these keyways with the indent in the plastic, and that way you'll ensure a tight fit. Make sure you pull the retaining area up before you try and put it on, or else it won't feed back on correctly. And really, they just slide right in. A little bit hard with one hand. Just make sure that everything slides back up to where it needs to go, and then make sure you reset the clip. After I put in the line, I thought I should probably bleed it out, and on this model car, since it's an electric pump, it's not a hard procedure to do. What you do is put your key in second position, so your lights come on and the interior comes on. Turn your thermostats on both sides all the way up to high, and your fan on the low, and then to press the accelerator for 10 seconds. And you can hear it now. Just kind of spinning up, and you can see it pushing fluid through back into the overflow. So it's going to bleed out all the air in the line that we just replaced. And it also gives me a chance to check and see if there's any leaks under both these areas now that I've reconnected everything up. There shouldn't be anything going on, so it should be good. From what I've seen on the other forums, this takes about 10 minutes to complete, 10-12 minutes to complete. Once it's done, I'll top off the fluid in the overflow and hopefully take it for a long drive tomorrow, and it should be good.